So I've got a confession to make. I've been using AI to do research. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, how are you going to trust it? It's going to lie to you. It's going to hallucinate. You're going to get dumb. That's cheating. And I get it. That's how I felt for a long time too. But I'd be willing to bet that by the end of this episode, you'll agree with me that AI is a way more effective way to do research than using search engines.
We were waiting for a decision from a federal judge on ultimately whether or not to break up Google.
So in case you didn't know, Google basically owns the internet now. Google Chrome is the most popular browser in the world right now. Chromium, the open source version of Google Chrome that Chrome is based on, is also widely used by other browsers. The only real contenders against Google's total monopoly of the browser world is Apple Safari and Mozilla Firefox.
Conspiracy theories are entering a dangerous...
Information is the oxygen of the democracy.
There's so much evidence out there that even if less than 1% is true, that would be enough to collapse the current paradigm and change the whole planet.
This is Claude. Well, actually, this is Claude Code, which is more like the Batman of Claude. And it's currently analyzing a whole cache of leaked emails from Ehud Barak. So maybe we better let it work for a minute and go meet Bruce Wayne. And we'll come back to it in just a second. Now this is Claude. Now the old way to learn about this would be to open Google and to ask Google a few questions about what the hell is happening with Venezuela. Obviously, you don't want to just ask what is happening in Venezuela because you're going to get all kinds of just headlines, mainstream news. Trump's move against Venezuela might not go to plan. Venezuela mobilized its militia after U.S. says it's deploying military forces to waters around Latin America. You could type in Venezuela news update. See what AP has to say. Well, that's not the latest. January 10th, Venezuela's latest. Maduro sworn in for third term as global backlash and sanctions mount. That's not right. Nicolas Maduro drug trafficking. New York Times, 2 days ago. Is Venezuela flooding the U.S. with drugs? Here's what to know. By Genevieve Glatsky. The United States has deployed several Navy ships and thousands of troops near Venezuelan waters. President Trump said Tuesday that U.S. forces had killed 11 people in a strike on a boat in the southern Caribbean that he said was transporting drugs from Venezuela. So I'm working on an episode all about this escalation in Venezuela, what it might mean, what it might look like, why it might be really happening. And we're going to examine the mainstream narrative, the drug trafficking narrative, all of that. But we're also going to examine the oil. Because certainly the CIA wouldn't be overthrowing another nation because of oil, right?
Just 2 hours ago, Allied air forces began an attack on military targets in Iraq and Kuwait.
Oil is energy. And its discovery in the late 1800s kicked off a new era in global warfare.
Weapons. Terror attacks. Cruel war against Kuwait.
Mass destruction.
Saddam Hussein.
Hamas. Violent extremism.
All the way back to the earliest days of the CIA, when they overthrew the government of Iran to wrest control over the Persian oil, to the Middle Eastern wars of today. Everything in the world runs on energy, and energy runs on oil. Okay, so let's get back to Batman. Let's go back to Claude Code and see how we've done. So, in the background, Claude Code, which we'll explain in a second, has been doing a whole different task. It's been analyzing all of Ehud Barak's leaked emails and writing a report all about them. Ehud Barak is the former Prime Minister of Israel, the former head of Israeli Special Forces, and probably Jeffrey Epstein's handler. So there's probably a lot of juicy, spicy stuff in these email leaks that cover about 11 months of time. They came in 2 different folders, each for a different email address. And inside of each folder is just an insane amount of files. And in each file, there's just an insane number of emails. And there's also folders with attachments and images, folders with other things associated, and it's all nested into these very complex file structures, and they all have overlapping names. How will you ever analyze all of this information? If I wanted to look through them all, I would have to open them all one by one and read each one. And some of it I can't even read because it's in Hebrew. That's never going to work. So how are we going to analyze them? So what we did is we tried to plug it all into AI and said, hey, Claude, could you take all of these emails and analyze them all at once for me? But the problem is that AIs have limitations right now, which is a good thing because if they didn't have limitations, we'd be in trouble. But most of the AIs can't handle quite enough. But Claude has a secret weapon. Claude Code has the ability to write code to access your files on your computer and to interface with them and to run scripts and programs. And so I called up my buddy, and my buddy, who knows what he's doing, taught me a little bit about how to use Claude Code. And what we did is we analyzed all of the files using Claude Code to write a program that would analyze them all and then rewrite them all into a new file using a JSON format, which is much more condensed. Put in all the data we didn't want, got rid of all the data we didn't want. So we kept the email bodies, we kept the headers, we kept the to and from, the time, all those things. But there are a lot of useless garbage that wasn't necessary. And so we down, one file, like, analyze that file on its own, and write reports. And so all that happened in the background while we were doing other tasks. And then once our assistant Claude was done compiling all that information, analyzing it and writing reports, it's written a number of reports and it's exposed a number of things. I wanted to analyze all the times that Ehud Barak corresponded with Jeffrey Epstein. I want to know how many emails there were, what they talked about, translate any Hebrew text, and let's just see what they're talking about. So let's put it in chronological order so that we can trace that correspondence over time. And here's our report. A couple of summaries of what they were doing. Clinton Foundation connections, they were monitoring political networks. This is a directory of all of the emails that Jeffrey Epstein and Ehud Barak exchanged, all of them in chronological order with the date, with the text of the body. And another question I had was, how many people is he corresponding with in Hebrew? Because for me, I can't even read Hebrew, obviously. How am I going to ever access that? But Claude speaks Hebrew. So I had Claude analyze the entire email cache, pick out all the emails that contained Hebrew text, translate all the Hebrew text, put them in chronological order with clickable links, and let's see what they're saying. This report we just generated this morning, I don't actually know what it says yet, so we're going to learn about this together. And lastly, the report that has yielded the most so far was just asking Claude to analyze who are all the most important people that Ehud Barak was communicating with, and who did he communicate with the most, and Peter Thiel comes up at the top of the list. No surprise there. Only directly mentioned in 2 emails, but they're very significant emails and it's a very significant connection, and a lot of reporting has been coming out lately about this connection. And this Reason article is a very good one. Inside Jeffrey Epstein's spy industry connections. In February 2016, however, Epstein pitched Reporty to Valar Ventures, a fund co-founded by Thiel and 2 close partners. And I got to wondering, co-founded by Thiel. Who were the co-founders? Well, Epstein wasn't a co-founder of Valar Ventures, right? Because we know that he invested with them, with 2 of their funds. But who are these mentioned co-founders? And so I got into asking more specific questions about Valar Ventures. And it turns out that Jeffrey Epstein is not one of the co-founders. But we did discover something else very significant about Peter Thiel and Jeffrey Epstein's relationship that I don't know if anyone's talking about yet. If you don't know who Peter Thiel is, I need to give you some context. Peter Thiel might be the most dangerous man in America today. He's a tech billionaire, and he got his start by raising a cool $1 million from his friends and family and getting into venture capital in 1996. His first big break was PayPal. You may have heard of the PayPal mafia, people like Elon Musk, David Sachs, Reid Hoffman, Peter Thiel. Thiel founded his most infamous company, Palantir, in 2003. Today, Palantir is laying the groundwork for the digital mass surveillance state that's slowly being rolled out across the United States, with the ultimate goal of predicting crime before it happens, pre-crime. It's been their dream for a long time. Palantir started as a digital mass surveillance platform for the battlefield. Its technology has been tested and honed by the IDF on the Palestinians in the West Bank, as well as in American combat theaters across the Middle East. And at this point, a lot of the details of how Palantir's programs work are actually shrouded in top secret classifications that come with its numerous Pentagon and intelligence agency contracts. But Peter Thiel is way spookier than just Palantir. Let's go back to February 4th, 2004. DARPA closes down its secret program called LifeLog, which was an early attempt to use the internet to keep files on American citizens. And that very same day, just by coincidence, Mark Zuckerberg launches the Facebook. In August of that year, just 6 months later, Peter Thiel became Facebook's first outside investor, deploying $500,000 for more than a 10% stake in the company. And remember, this was the 9/11 era. Digital mass surveillance was something that regular Americans could hardly even conceive of yet. But it was all the rage in Silicon Valley. And perhaps no one made that mission more personal than Peter Thiel. Then, fast forward to 2011, and Peter Thiel gives a speech at Yale Law School. And in the audience is a young J.D. Vance, although at the time his name was James David Hamill, but that's a whole different story. J.D. was so inspired by Peter Thiel's story that, just like Thiel, he dropped out of law school and went to Silicon Valley to work in tech, where Peter Thiel proceeded to get him his first job, and then funded his first firm, and then funded his first political race, and then arranged a face-to-face meeting with Donald Trump that ultimately secured him his Senate victory. Then, Peter Thiel, David Sachs, and all their friends recommended him for vice president. And then they proceeded to fund the campaign all the way to the White House. It's a long story. And there's a lot of coincidences. And then there's also that one time that Thiel's side piece male stripper boyfriend wound up mysteriously dead. But let's not get distracted by any crazy conspiracy theories, eh? So anyways, Peter Thiel's pretty important, and he's pretty spooky. And I just thought that you should know that. Now, back to what we just discovered about Jeffrey Epstein investing with Peter Thiel and Valar Ventures in 2015 and 2016. Epstein's investment details. Jeffrey Epstein invested $40 million into 2 funds managed by Valar Ventures between 2015 and 2016. This investment is now valued at nearly $170 million. And that has been reported relatively extensively, and we've seen the reporting on that already. Epstein's secret investment with GOP mastermind nets estate $130 million. And all of the reporting about it is focusing on how much money it's worth today. But no one seems to be asking, how much money was it when it was invested? Because obviously it was $40 million. But how big was that compared to the size of Valar Ventures at the time? Was that a little bit of money, a medium bit of money, or was that a lot of money? And when you start to dig into it, you realize that it was a lot of money for Valar Ventures at the time of that investment. So we don't know Valar Ventures' total assets under management at any given time. It's not publicly disclosed. but it represented a very significant portion of Valar's assets at the time. According to Wikipedia, not great. Both Zero and TransferWise were investments out of Valar's $100 million first fund, which was a series of special purpose vehicles, including $32 million New Zealand specific fund. Okay, so that suggests that Epstein's $40 million investment represented roughly 40% of Valar's first fund. But that's very surface level, and I don't trust it yet. So let's dig deeper. And this is where we got a little deeper. TechCrunch, a much higher quality source. Valar closed its debut fund on $32 million in 2014. And this is where it gets juicy. Peter Thiel founded Valar Ventures, raised a $300 million fund, half the size of its last one. New York-based firm has successfully raised a $300 million Valar Fund 9, according to a May 17th SEC filing. While that's a decently sized fund, it is less than half of the predecessor, which closed $665 million in July of 2022. So these days, Valar is pretty big. But how big was Valar back then? So, Valar closed its debut fund on $32 million in 2014, and has since set its sights on larger pools of capital. Valar 4, the firm's largest fund yet, brought in $133.4 million in 2018. So if Valar Fund number 1 only had $32 million in 2014, and then Valar 4 brought in $133 million in 2018, Jeffrey Epstein invested $40 million in between there. And he invested it in 2 different funds. So had he been investing in Valar Fund number 1, $40 million was more than the entire worth of Valar's first fund. And Valar 4 wasn't started until 2018. So the only options are Valar 2 and Valar 3. And how much was in those funds? Well, I plugged this logic into Claude. Does this make sense to you, Claude? Explain any flaws in my reasoning. Because the way I'm looking at it, if Valar 1 was 32 million and Valar 4 was 133 million, it would make sense that each fund would grow over time. And Valar 2 would not probably be bigger than Valar 4, because as they develop their reputation and their business acumen and everyone trusts them more people will invest with them. So each fund should be getting bigger over time if they're doing their job right. And so it's probably true that Valar 2 and 3, which Jeffrey Epstein invested in, probably was not bigger than 133 million, but probably was not smaller than 32 million. And Claude agreed that that logic made sense, explained why, and then we started digging even deeper, because now we're onto something. And here is a really interesting source. This source is a difficult one to trust. It's hard to understand. Private fund data, just some random website. That being said, there are a lot of websites like this that are legitimate and are used by business people to do this kind of stuff. And they do clearly have fund ID, fund manager, registered location. They're clearly scraping this data from somewhere. And it says Valar Global Fund 3 LP is a venture capital fund operated by Valar Ventures LLC and has approximately $22 million in assets. 22 million. So Valar Fund 3 had only $22 million in it? Now we know fund number 1, 32 million. We know fund number 3, allegedly 22 million. And fund number 4 was bigger and after the Jeffrey Epstein window, right? Now we have questions. Because if fund 1 was closed before Jeffrey Epstein came along, and fund 2 we don't know about, and fund 3 was worth $22 million in 2017, which is the end of the Epstein window, but it still includes him, then $40 million from Epstein into 2 funds, and one of those funds is only worth $22 million. So Jeffrey Epstein funded Peter Thiel's entire Valar Ventures from 2015 to 2017, more or less. Claude says, in VC, venture capital, fund sizes generally follow performance and market conditions. The pattern here suggests Valar was operating with relatively modest fund sizes in the early years, only breaking into the 100 million plus range with Fund 4. Confidence level is high, 75 to 85%, that Fund 2 was under $100 million, making Epstein's $40 million investment potentially 40 to 60% of that fund, a very significant portion. Your reasoning demonstrates good analytical thinking. You're using the available data points to triangulate a reasonable range, which is exactly the right approach when dealing with incomplete information. So, what Claude is assessing, based upon those numbers, those stats, that reporting, Claude's estimating that 40 to 67% of total fund assets, which is an exceptionally large commitment from a single investor, was coming from Jeffrey Epstein to Peter Thiel's Valar Ventures in 2015 and 2016. That is just 10 years ago. That is very recent history. That's actually kind of around the time when J.D. Vance was being inspired by Peter Thiel over the speech that he gave at Yale. I'd be curious to look that up, actually. When did J.D. Vance first see Peter Thiel speak at Yale? Wow. J.D. Vance first saw Peter Thiel speak at Yale Law School in 2011. So the J.D. Vance Peter Thiel relationship overlaps directly with the Peter Thiel Jeffrey Epstein relationship. Well, isn't that interesting? And the thing that's so significant about this, to the story we're actually telling right now, is that that discovery happened on accident. That discovery was a tangential side quest. And in the past, these side quests would involve days of research. In order to dig up those sources and to triangulate the dates and time frames, I would have been looking at a whole morning of research probably, of just busy work, of Googling things and checking sources and clicking on different things and just reading a lot of text and information and trying to take notes and keep it all in order. And often those side quests get left behind because they're not productive. And even if they were productive, they're taking too much time out of my day. But because it's as quick as just, hey, work on this in the background while I'm doing something else, you start to be able to go down those side quests much more efficiently and effectively, and you wind up discovering things you never realized you'd discover. And then you also have way more analytical power to assess those little question marks that you see along the way and to get to the bottom of what might be a big story. None of that would have happened if I had just been using Google instead of AI. Because I'm not that smart, to be honest. Maybe someone much smarter than me would have noticed it. Maybe someone smarter than me would have put those pieces together. But as far as I'm aware, no one has put those pieces together yet. I haven't seen any reporting on it. Have you seen any reporting on it? Because I haven't seen any reporting on it. So, thanks, Claude.
So when people have this conversation about AI being a controlled information space and AI being able to censor information and all these things, there's this huge missing piece of the puzzle. And its name is Google.
Does their behavior enhance or inhibit competition?
They're in the media business, they're in the advertising business, they're in the messaging business.
A federal judge has found that tech giant Google broke antitrust laws, acting illegally to maintain a monopoly in online search. Google currently controls roughly 90% of the world's internet searches. Today's ruling could upend how Americans get their information online and fundamentally change the way that big tech companies operate.
Question is, every time you go to Google, can you trust the company isn't influencing what pops up on your screen? It's the one answer you may not get from Google.
Because consumers need choice, that's really the bottom line.
So, the Google founders. This article is a really important piece of the story, because this article tells the story of how Google was not some tech geniuses that founded a startup in their garage, just like all the other tech companies. Google was founded from intelligence agency grants with the explicit intention of digital mass surveillance. And it tells this story in quite a bit of detail about how in the mid-1990s, the intelligence community of America began to realize that they had an opportunity. The supercomputing revolution was bringing everybody online, and everybody was filling up the internet with data, with a record of everything that they were looking at and reading and saying and thinking. And the CIA immediately saw the opportunity here. They began funding grants through DARPA and other agencies to develop technologies that would surveil this system. The Massive Digital Data Systems Project, the MDDS, was introduced to several dozen leading computer scientists at Stanford, Caltech, MIT, etc. And it largely was not kept secret. It was largely unclassified science agencies like NSF, because they wanted the architecture to be scaled up in the private sector. So then in 1995, 2 grants for a computer science research team at Stanford University, funded by DARPA and NSF grant money, was part of a coordinated effort to build a massive digital library using the internet as its backbones. Both grants funded research by 2 graduate students who were making rapid advances in web page ranking as well as tracking. Future Google co-founders Sergey Brin and Larry Page. The research by Brin and Page under these grants became the heart of Google. People using search functions to find precisely what they wanted inside a very large data set. The intelligence community, however, saw a slightly different benefit in their research. Could the network be organized so efficiently that individual users could be uniquely identified and tracked? They didn't even realize what their goal was going to be when they started. So Google, the monopoly in the search market, the monopoly in the web browsing market, was founded from CIA and NSA grant money, CIA and NSA funded research, by 2 people that were directly connected to Jeffrey Epstein, and they are intelligence community contractors. They contract with the agencies to do all sorts of things, from cloud computing, data systems, to surveillance work, and granting informational requests that we do and do not know about. Google is very much a controlled information space. I mean, have you already forgotten what it was like to Google search health advice during COVID, right? The narrative is already controlled, and this is the controller. Is already controlled, and this is the controller.
Not bad, huh? Not bad. But we've been locked in this library for days, editing and filming and researching, and I think we got to go touch some grass. What's up, Jeej? How's it going outside? What do you think? You find something under there? Let's go, Jeej. I do have some closing thoughts on AI and on Google and on the whole thing, but AI has lots of potential benefits. It has lots of potential downsides. Don't get me wrong. I am of the belief that it is probably going to end human civilization at some point in the next 100 years. I don't think we're going to escape that. And I don't think that you using AI to help get more informed has any effect on that outcome. You're not going to make the world end. You're not going to be mind controlled. Just don't be a dumbass. The main thing is, how do you use AI? Do you use it to replace your brain functions, or do you use it to enhance your brain functions? Do you use it to find sources? Do you use it to replace the busy work that you don't need to do so you can think more creatively, more frequently? It's all about how you use it. That's what tools do. This has been a really rough week. This is the week that Charlie Kirk got shot, and obviously not everyone agrees with Charlie Kirk's ideas, but it is a really stark reminder that it's a heavy world, and that talking about politics and intelligence agencies and organized crime groups and pedophile trafficking rings, all of these things, we're all interfacing with a really dark side to a really corrupted world. And it's important to get outside and just touch some grass sometimes. Get your feet in the grass, get the sun on your skin, get out in some water, do a cold plunge, take good care of yourself, your soul, your heart. And I want to point out too, one last thing I want to point out here at the end is that video jumped around a lot, right? Like, we covered a lot of topics, but ultimately it actually stayed pretty on topic to what really matters going forwards with AI. Because what rules the world? Money, energy, information, right? Everything else falls down into those categories. Everything else feeds those power structures. Control the energy, control the money, control the information, you control the world, right? And AI plays in all of those battlefields. Energy dominance is going to be essential for having the biggest AIs. AIs eat energy. They require massive data centers. And so who controls the oil, who controls the free energy maybe, who controls the energy systems going forwards, controls the super brain, right? That super brain controls the money. Obviously, AI is going to be how you make the money. AI is going to be what controls the markets. AI already controls the markets, right? And then, information. Need I say more? And so information might be the one place where we can actually make a real difference, where a regular American, regular person anywhere in the world can learn information, share information, spread information, question information. And AI is an invaluable tool for doing that. And this video is all about me urging you to wisely learn to use AI to enhance your ability to learn and share information. Bagheera! Oh, there she comes. Look at her run. Look at her run. Look at her run. Come on. Come on. Yeah. Whoosh. Hey, we have a swim dog. Okay, Jeej, whatever. You're going to swim today. And so if we're fighting an information war and there's a weapon on the table that you could learn to use, don't be afraid to pick it up and start training, right? Metaphorically speaking. We're talking about AI here. Because you dang well better believe the enemies of freedom, the enemies of humanity, they are going full speed ahead with AI to arm themselves to the teeth. And it's up to all of us to fight back. I don't know how it's going to turn out. I don't know where AI is going to go. I don't know how fast it's going to destroy us all. Whether that's soul, metaphorically speaking, destroy us at our core, or whether it's literally going to drop bombs on all of us. Who knows? But in the meantime, you might as well learn some shit. Out. And I just want to clarify that I did that all on my own because it's fun. And I wanted to learn new skills. I wanted to learn how to edit. I wanted to learn to storytell. I wanted to practice new camera techniques and just be creative because it's been a heavy month. It's been a heavy week. I just wanted to infuse a little more creativity and fun into my job because I have to do this every single day. So you're going to be seeing more videos like that coming soon. I know that the audio needed work. Sorry. Microphones are tough and we're getting better ones. I've already got like 3 new ones and we're going to have the sound dialed. But I just want to remind you that this is just like a creative process of a dude learning things mostly on his own. Got a couple friends that I kind of learn from and learn with and get a little bit of help from, but ultimately, like, I've kept myself completely independent so I can just do what I want. So that when I'm feeling a lack of creativity in the work that I've assigned myself, I can assign myself work with more creativity. So when I want to know about a specific topic, it doesn't matter how controversial it is or who would tell me not to look into it. I can look into it because it's my platform, it's my videos, and I do what I want. So I hope you liked it. And we're still gonna be doing the old style deep dives too, with just the evidence, just the information. Those are a lot faster, a lot more informative, I think, but there's a certain place for storytelling and for getting into sort of the metaphors and emotions and like the more subtle parts of what's really going on out here. And so we're just gonna be playing and having a good time. Yeah.
Thanks. Bye.